The Rolex Explorer 36, a watch that is loved by the watch community and the only model where Rolex went to a larger size in one generation and brought it back to the historical small size in another. I won't go into the history of the model as there are many videos covering that, but I will say it was not the watch that summited Everest, but a watch that was developed using experience Rolex gained from summiting with an Oyster Perpetual. I always saw it as a more legible, more robust OP. It is also the Rolex to wear if you want to stay low-key and not have people notice you're wearing a Rolex. That was the thing that drew me to this piece. It is understated and very basic. No cyclops, no fluted bezel, no flashy bracelet. It is literally pure essentials of watchmaking, as Grand Seiko likes to say, done in a high-quality way. The black glossy dial with white gold applied markers and iconic hands are highly legible in any conditions, as you would expect from a watch named Explorer. It is one of the best dial layouts ever, and the only pet peeve I have is the lack of lume on the 369 numerals that are filled with regular white paint, something Rolex fixed in later iterations. The one thing that caught me by surprise when I first held the watch in my hands was the size. It is smaller than you expect. It looks more like a 34mm watch. Measuring it with my calipers gave me the answer. Even though the watch is 35 point something, that is on the lower part of the case where it curves slightly outwards. But the bezel, which is the part you actually see and the one that gives you the size perspective, is just 34.8. It is minute when held in your hand, but that all changes when you put it on your wrist. It is quite long for the size, and combined with the T-shaped endings of the bracelet, it covers a lot more wrist area in length than you would expect. It gives way more wrist presence than the size would suggest, and the shape of the case, with a slight bend, follows the curvature of my 6.7-inch wrist like no other watch ever. It looks like it was custom shaped and tailored for my wrist only. This also makes it incredibly comfortable to wear. The watch simply disappears on the wrist. Part of that comfort is down to the bracelet and clasp. Because it is lighter than modern Rolex bracelets, it perfectly balances the watch. Compared to anything above $300 found on the market today, the bracelet might seem outdated and flimsy on paper, having hollow center links and a stamped clasp. But the solid end and side links give it just the right amount of heft and quality feel. Even the clasp, which is stamped and basic in construction, somehow feels high quality. It is miles ahead of my Seiko 5. It doesn't rattle, the clasp closes with a firm and secure click, and even the safety latch that is paper thin somehow feels solid. But that's the thing with Rolex. Even when doing something basic and cheap in construction, they somehow make it feel high quality. And this generation of bracelets hit the perfect balance between the modern hefty ones and vintage flimsy ones. The case, despite being minute, is one of the prettiest I handled. Again, it is as basic as a watch case can be, but done in a beautiful way. Every shape and curve is done almost to perfection, and the curved polished sides make Submariner's flat sides look pedestrian. The finish is amazing, and the only thing I would change is give the bezel radial brushing like the Explorer II has, instead of this high polish. It would make it hide scratches better and make it look more like a tool watch that it is. This reference is powered by the 3130 movement, again the most basic movement Rolex offered at the time. And yes, it does have some pet peeves, like the fact it is very hard to set the minute hand exactly where you want it, as it always moves ever so slightly when you let go of the crown. So you have to aim close to the marker you want to set and hope the hands land on the marker when you release. But other than that, the movement is bulletproof. It winds smoothly, it makes no sounds or rattles when worn, and to my amazement, even though it is almost 20 years old, this one is still within 2 seconds per day, despite never being serviced. Rolex, as a victim of its own success, often comes associated with negative connotations. And yes, there are people and there are models of Rolex watches that are bought mostly as a flex, a way to show off. But the Explorer couldn't be further away from those attributes. It is just a damn good watch that gives you everything great about Rolex without the negatives. With the new 214270, Rolex fixed the lume issue and brought the bracelet and clasp to the top quality-wise. But that hasn't changed the appeal of the older references, because the proportions of the case, lugs, bezel, and dial are slightly different. The new one looks bigger but stubbier in a way, while this one has more elegance to it. If you want one with more wrist presence, the latest iteration is for you, but I find this generation the best. Not as heavy and chunky as the new one, nor as flimsy as the ones before it. It is just right, even if it appears small the first time you handle it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and until the next video, bye.